Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Dave Bardin asked me a while back if I would make a video about my clamps. Well, I'm kind of puzzled about how I was going to go about doing that because I have at least one or two, and I was trying to decide if there should be a break or a differentiation between different types of clamps. So I decided, okay, I'm going to just start. That's how I do most things, isn't it? One of the things that I've said in the past, because I'm somewhat hard to buy things for, I usually buy what I want to have when I want it. And so, therefore, trying to give me a gift is a little bit difficult. Then I hit upon a great idea. I said, if you want to give me a gift, and you can't think of anything else, give me a clamp. You can never have too many clamps. Now it also goes along with the idea that you never count your tools. You don't really want to know how many of any individual tool that you have unless you're really desperate to make something and you know you don't have enough and you need to buy more and you only have limited amounts of money, and therefore you have to say, okay, I can only buy like 5 clamps, therefore I need to have enough clamps to do this job, and I need like 75 clamps, so I gotta get 5 more. Really don't want to do that. Way too much trouble. So, over the time that I've been doing this tool thing, let's see, that's been 64 years, I've developed a bit of a fixation on clamps. One of my favorite clamps is this big old monster. Now, the thing I like about this clamp, besides the idea that it's old, it's also extremely adjustable. You can go from very short, about a foot, all the way out to over 3 feet. Cool thing is, if I decided that, you know what, I really want to use this monster bar clamp to clamp up something that's about 3 inches long, I take my saw and I cut another notch here. If I decide that, well, you know what, this thing really should be clamping something 78 feet long. Yeah, 78 feet. Why would I want to clamp something 78 feet long? I once clamped barn siding onto a barn that was 60 foot square. And I used clamps like this, not this long, and really they were only about 12 to 14 feet long, but I used those clamps to pull the siding into place. So, to make a long story short, I can make this bar as long as I want, because really the operating end here has about 6 inches of travel. I attach that to one end of whatever bar I use, and I make the bar as long as I want to clamp. This just slides back and forth, comes right off, hooks into a notch. The action of the clamp going against this jaw pulls this thing up into the notch and actually pulls it tighter. You're not going to make that slip at all. The tighter you push it, the harder it tries to crush the 2x4. Very cool old clamp. Most of the time when you're clamping anything, you really want to have at least 2 clamps. Having the wooden beam clamp that I showed you just a second ago, I really wanted to have another one. Well, I couldn't find an exact match. Silly me, I bought the beam clamp thinking that I'll go back the next week and get the next one, because there was 2 of them at the antique shop. Antique shops only have a limited amount of whatever they have, and when it's gone, it's gone. They're not going to get any more because they're not in the business of making antiques. They just find them and sell them. So when I went back to get the other bar clamp, somebody else had got it. So now there was 2 guys with only 1 clamp each instead of 1 guy with 2 clamps. I set about to remedy that problem. There was another clamp at a different store, so I picked it up. Similar design, similar concept. This one, a little different mounting point. It's not quite as limber as the other one. The clamping bar, or the screw end, is fixed in 2 places instead of just 1 through bolt. So this one is more of a fixed length. Somebody got tired of picking up the movable jaw off the floor, so they drilled it and put a dowel pin in the end. I think that's actually a good idea. If it wasn't for the fact that it was an antique and I really didn't want to screw it up, I'd do the same thing on the other beam. Okay, I got a fixation. But these two beam clamps now are similar enough in design that I've satisfied my compulsion to have two. This is the style of clamp that I use to clamp the siding on the barn, actually. This is a sometimes called a pipe clamp, but it's really a beam or a bar clamp. I'm calling a beam or a bar clamp anything that has a beam and two movable jaws. So it's a beam or a bar clamp because it has a bar and a clamping device. This one happens to be a Jorgensen. I like Jorgensen. They're very good tools. They make good castings. They're solid, they're square. The clamping devices work quite well, and the screws are very nicely cut so that they spin back and forth and they have plenty of strength. You're not going to bend the tab on the end. Now admittedly, this is a pipe, and it's just a piece of 3/4 inch pipe. You can buy heavy wall 3/4 inch pipe and make it a little bit stronger, but chances are you're not ever going to be clamping anything that needs that much pressure. I use these building a truck frame, and I was able to pull the truck frame into line with just a standard old 3/4 inch pipe. More than enough power to do anything I wanted to do. The cool thing about this kind of bar clamp, it can be any length that you want. Not only can you use a longer length of pipe, you can screw on a coupling, thread on another piece of pipe, make it as long as you want. Very handy piece of equipment. This is also a bar clamp that uses a pipe. Has a couple of different features to it though. It adjusts here, and it also adjusts here. By pushing on this lever, I release the stack that holds the screw in, and I can move it back and forth. So I can have this go pretty much anywhere on the pipe. It also lets me slide this off the end, and allows me to turn it around. So now I can use it as a spreader. I don't very often have to spread something, but if I do, it's a handy feature to have. Pipe clamps come in two main sizes. There may be others, I don't know. I haven't found any others, but there's a possibility of having one any size pipe that you want to have. Most of them that I've seen are either 3/4 like the other ones or 1/2 inch like this one. These 1/2 inch ones aren't as strong as the 3/4 inch, obviously. And this one happens to be a discount cheapie. So a discount cheapie will function. You can buy all kinds of crap that does okay, but doesn't do a really good job. This one, in particular, doesn't thread very well at all. The jaws don't line up exactly square to the pipe, and the catch device is a lever that has teeth on it. So as you push the jaws together, which on this galvanized pipe is not easy, it causes the teeth to dig into the pipe and keeps the jaw from sliding. They don't hold very well. And this is an old one that I picked up at a garage sale. Somebody has over tightened it way too much and bent the end. Not worth the trouble to fix. Still functions, does okay as a clamp, but not my favorite. Then we have this one, which is a very cool clamp. I got this one at an antique shop. It was in a box of clamps. A whole pile of clamps all mixed together. This one allows you to move this jaw back and forth, but instead of having the screw into the jaw going this way, it uses a leverage and lets you run this screw in, and it pushes the jaw that way. Has a lot of power. Does a really good job. Wish I had more than one, but it's a Coastal. It has a US patent number, but it's made in England. I don't run across a lot of these. If I see one, I'm gonna get it. In the same box that the Coastal clamp came in, I had two of these multi-grip clamps. They're made by Wilton. Wilton is a good name. They make all kinds of clamps and vices and holding systems. This one allows you to slide this jaw back and forth. You can move the clamping in back and forth, and you tighten that by squeezing the lever on the bottom. You can move this in back and forth. Has a nice feature. You can take this end off, put it down through a dog hole in a bench, fasten this end on it, and then you have a bench clamp that goes right through a dog hole. Works quite well. I'm not a big fan of this type of clamp simply because of the way the clamp handle works. I don't like having the lever going in that direction. It's an affectation. I have two of these. When I was in shop class with Mr. Reed, we had bar clamps. This was called a bar clamp. On the test, this is called a bar clamp. Now this particular one comes from Harbor Freight. And as you know, I kind of like Harbor Freight stuff if I can get it because of the price, just only because of the price. Their quality control sucks. These bar clamps, when you buy them, you have to slide it all the way up and down, make sure it moves, because some of them don't. You have to tighten it up, make sure that the thread holds on the bar, because some of them don't. Make sure the little ratchet works, make sure that the little make sure that the little button on the end stays on, because some of them fall off. But you pick them up for $4 or $5. And you can get quite long ones. I've gotten 4 of these because Harbor Freight has that deal where you get 20% off on one item and then you get something free. Whenever I'm going by Harbor Freight, I usually stop and pick up one of these for 20% off. Okay, 20% cost me $3. And I get a flashlight. I've got enough screwdrivers and I really don't need a whole lot more tape measures. But these flashlights are cool. They're cheap and they make great stocking stuffers for almost anybody can use a flashlight. The type of clamp that I use absolutely the most is a one-hand ratcheting bar clamp. And this is Jorgensen. I like Jorgensen. Actually, my son gave me these because I'm too cheap to buy them new. If I get them at a garage sale, awesome! But I hate paying retail for them because they're expensive. They're very nice. They do a great job. This one has the feature where you can turn this jaw around. By removing the screw and placing the screw on the other end, now you have a spreader. Evidently, a lot of people like using spreaders because this is a feature that I'm seeing more and more on this type of clamp. I don't use them much that way. Mostly I want a clamp to hold things together. The nature of the universe is entropy. Everything tries to go to its lowest energy state, which means things that are joined together tend to fall apart. I don't really need to have a clamp to pull them apart on most times. This is a Bessie. Bessies are very nice clamps, made by the Bessemer company, and this one's called a dual clamp. This was a gift. Somebody listened to me, that's always nice. It has that handle that I'm not really fond of. It does allow you to clamp things next to the bar so that you can have a large flat piece and clamp it like sideways. Use this as an example. You can clamp top and bottom. Kind of neat. I only have one of these. I'm looking for another one. Next to Jorgensen, Irwin. Really good clamps. Same kind of thing. Lots of power. This one has the removable jaw so you can turn it into a spreader. Bells and whistles, doesn't make much difference to me. I just like the idea that I can pick up an Irwin clamp and it's going to clamp whatever I want to clamp. It's going to do a good job of holding it. Because Irwin came up with a ratcheting clamp, Irwin was the first, as far as I know. That's the first ones I ran across. There may have been others that came up with a clamp before Irwin, but that's my understanding is Irwin was first. If I'm wrong, leave me a note in the comments below. I'm always happy to learn something new. This one is a Shopsmith, which I'm taking as a knockoff on an Irwin. If you're going to do a knockoff, do one like this guy did. Shopsmith, sturdy. It works really well. It's fiber reinforced plastic, solid as the day is long. It's got a big jaw on it. Reaches out and clamps something a good 8 inches, well, good 6 inches across. So you can put two 2x4s inside of it, clamp them down. It's nice. I didn't buy this retail. This came out of a garage sale. Somebody else decided that they didn't need it, and I can't understand anybody ever saying that. So you don't think I'm limited to just a few bar clamps? I have got multiples of each style. But those are all representative samples of bar clamps. There is a flaw in my method for obtaining clamps. I like to buy clamps. I try and buy inexpensive clamps. I look for clamps all over the place. And what I do is I come home with clamps. This came from Harbor Freight. This is a cheap, crappy clamp. Now, I fixed it because it broke, and that's what I do. I wanted to see why it broke and what could be done to make it so it didn't break. There's a pin inside here that this lever rotates on. That pin snapped off because it's just made out of a piece of 1/8 inch thick plastic, 1/8 inch diameter plastic. Really not worth the trouble. I did manage to get it put back together again, and it does work. It's just not what I would consider to be a worthwhile clamp. This one is an Advantex Workshop quick switch clamp. If you want to buy a clamp, don't buy an Advantex. Problem with this one, pin snapped off. This one has the same problem, except problem with this one, the pin snapped off. This one has the same problem, except you can't get it apart to repair that pin. So it's really kind of worthless. You can use it as a holding device just simply by pushing the ratchet together, and it'll allow you to push something in and hold it, make a clamp out of it. So I haven't tossed it. Also, I have a fixation with things. I still want to try and fix this. I think with this clamp they try to do too many things at once. They try to make it inexpensive, so they lightened up on the quality of the parts. They tried to make it a push me pull you. There's a knob here that you can turn that releases the jaw, or click it on up and it makes it a spreader. My theory on multiple tools, just like a crescent wrench is a great thing called a nut rounder. This one is a clamp that will hold something together, but only if you don't pull it tight. Just want to squeeze it up. Great for making things out of balsa wood. Something that fits tightly together and you don't really need a clamp. Maybe holding the shower curtain. Other than that, don't buy Advantix Workshop quick switch. It'll break on you. So that's a representative sample of my beam clamps. I have more clamps and we'll be going through those in another video. If you have any suggestions for new videos or questions about today's video or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments below. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.